I like the mirror in the background.
Yeah, it's also the weird thing. The funny thing about this is, so the TV is like in front of me and this mirror is behind me, and the TV is like way too high. I don't know if you saw in the picture. It's like my neck hurts like just from like watching the Steven Seagal movie on it. It's not a good TV. Well, I mean the TV's fine, but its placement is awful. But with the mirror behind it, that literally like I'm watching the TV and then I'm seeing the TV's reflected into the mirror, but then like during dark scenes when the TV's black, I'm seeing the mirror's reflection of the TV, but since it's been reflected twice, like it's right ways again. So I'm just seeing a second little picture-in-picture on the TV. Like replicated perfectly. But
you get double the Seagal in your Seagal.
Yeah. But fun fact, I hate Connecticut sucks.
What's wrong with Connecticut?
I'm not trying to say anything controversial here, but Connecticut, the entire state, it's garbage.
Oh,
there's our opener. I'm gonna edit that out. I'm gonna put it at the beginning.
I'm not trying to make any enemies. I love all of God's creations, but Connecticut is like a trash tier state.
But you can't check your six. It's kind of like, taking a screwdriver to a gunfight. What's happening? Just like on top.
Welcome back to Steven See It All. We're Steven seeing them all, so you, Steven, don't have to. Today we're talking about Submerged from 2005. Where the poster is a submarine and Submerged, you'd think submarine, and they spend
you'd
like
think,
15
wouldn't
minutes.
you?
Yeah, they spend like 15 minutes on a submarine, and then the rest of the movie doesn't
blows
have
up at
to
the
do.
almost exact midpoint of the movie.
Yeah, the rest of the movie has absolutely nothing to do with the submarine. No, they say submerged once. They say we are submerged, and that's it.
To be fair, in the movie's defense, I don't think it happens in the midpoint of the movie. It happens whenever the movie just becomes a different movie. So
Pretty much.
Arguably the climax of the first movie is in the submarine, and then the like exposition of this other movie that they put here is like back on land. And
I'm Aaron, by the way.
Oh, I'm Zach.
I'm Hans.
This feels like two 45-minute movies that were just
sandwiched together.
Or
even edited completely differently.
Yep.
It's so
strange.
The
first 45-minute movie hates you. And the second 45-minute movie doesn't hate you as much, but is trying very, very hard to be Bad Boys 2.
And also Mission Impossible and also Fast and Furious.
So, I was watching this movie.
Was it
and
Rogue Nation that takes place at the opera?
The aesthetic of this film I can only describe as aggressive. Like,
yes.
I was the first of our group here to start it. I was the first of our group here to start it. And like 10 minutes into the movie, I sent a message to the other two and I said, be warned, major seizure hazard throughout this movie.
Yeah, before we even go into a synopsis, that's a great point to start on, because the editing and the way that everything is sort of smash cut together, it's like a smash cut at 3 times the speed. And
we talked about it in the
trying to give you a seizure.
Well, like we talked about, like in the Michael Oblowitz ones, it also does like those interesting editing when a character gets aggressive at rapid fires between them. It's that on steroids. It's a million times worse.
It's
right,
so
but
much
it's for
worse.
no reason. It's not leading up to anything.
No,
the whole intro sequence with the credits rolling in the background is just like flash from dark color, light color, dark color, light color, dark color, light color. It's just back and forth constantly
and
for like a solid 3 minutes, and it's very difficult to watch. Like, I don't want to sound like a it did like it's anyway. It's just bad.
That's why I say
the
first 45 minutes of this movie hates you.
Aaron thankfully sent us that message saying, a seizure warning for this movie. And I stupidly was thinking, like that infamous Pokemon episode, like, there's going to be a moment. Like, he's warning us because, like, 20 minutes in, you have, like, these 5 seconds that are really bad. And I started watching, and no, it is immediate it is constant. It is from the start, and it just is there mostly for the first 4 or 5 minutes, but it doesn't completely go away.
No, it doesn't completely go away.
If you didn't have a seizure in the first 45 minutes, you still have a chance.
If this wasn't a direct-to-video movie, I would have said that they had a challenge. Like, how quickly can we get people to walk out of the theater?
How quickly can we get people to return this to Redbox or wherever you, unfortunately, to the dollar bin at Walmart?
So, okay, so I said I could only describe the aesthetics in this movie as aggressive. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. You have all these crazy smash cuts. You have shots where, like, there'll be several seconds of one continuous shot just taken out. Mm-hmm. Like, it'll be, like, maybe a 5-second shot, and the middle 1 second is just gone.
And sometimes, but not always, a random 1 second of another shot put in there. Sometimes not.
Sometimes not. Strange. Sometimes they'll just insert a random 1 second from some other shot in the middle there. Or not exact middle, just like a little off of the middle. So it's extra confusing.
Does that insert have a reason to be there?
Movie.
No.
And the color grading is extreme. So you'll go through
everything's
like 5 minutes where everything is so green, you can't actually discern details within the frame. Or like I remember one specific, there was an outdoor shot that everything was so yellow, I couldn't actually tell what was going on.
Now, see, my favorite part about the color grading, though, like you mentioned, so it does the classic Hollywood thing of like a foreign country and like, you know, to the South or Middle East, you know, just like anywhere that's vaguely kind of warmer, Hollywood likes to just make like super tinted yellow. This movie does that to a whole cranked up to 11, but also characters in the same country at the same location will have different color grades. Like it will cut from harsh yellow to like somewhat normal, but they're like 10 feet apart from each other.
Also, everyone is horrifically sweaty all the time.
That was my first,
including the
first thing in my notes. I don't have that many notes on this one. I tried to not take notes, and then I had to put stuff down so that I could remember it. Everyone is sweaty. I don't know why. Everyone is sweaty just sitting in a car with air conditioning on. Everyone is sweaty
constantly.
Just having a conversation in an office building. Everyone is sweaty when they're doing work outside, but then everyone is also sweaty when they go back inside. It's
I finally feel seen. I finally feel depicted on film.
So I had about like maybe 7/8 of the way through this movie, which I'm actually embarrassed that it took me this long to figure out. I was thinking, what is this movie trying to be? Because this aesthetic looks like something familiar to me, but I can't figure it out because it's just not doing it well enough for me to figure out what it is. I figured it out. Bad Boys 2 came out in 2003, 2 years before this movie.
Yeah.
This movie, I believe, was trying very hard to be a Michael Bay film. But imagine if Michael Bay only had $15 and a handful of peanuts to make a Bayhem film.
The very funny thing about that is that's the most logical explanation from what I've read about the movie, like the background information I got, the kind of production nightmare that it was. It wanted to be something very different.
This was obviously a production nightmare.
And it accidentally got to the Bayhem aesthetic. It wanted to be something very different, but before we talk about that, Hans, what actually happened in this movie?
Yeah, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We've talked about how awful it looks and how sweaty everybody is, but we don't even know what it's about.
So, okay, as Hans goes through this synopsis, I just want you, dear listener, to imagine everyone is blue or green or yellow and just
sweat.
Dripping in sweat.
Oh, yeah, speaking of the green, sorry, it also wants to be the Matrix. Okay, anyway, sorry, Hans, go
yeah,
through
anyway, continue.
And also...
They literally do like the scene where Neo and Trinity enter into the big office building. They do that scene. Anyway, continue.
I don't even remember how it starts.
Happened?
So there's a guy. I'm just gonna go through this quick. There's a guy. He does mind control. He like opens your eyes wide and shows you a whole bunch of weird images that they don't really explain, and it's supposed to, imprint something in your brain, and
uses
that
a VR headset.
Yeah, that can be triggered whenever he wants via some really weird old telephone. Doesn't matter. We start off with like learning about him because they have a U.S. drone circling a dam, but really low where you can see it really obviously. And they make a whole big deal out of this Predator drone that doesn't look anything like a Predator drone.
No, it looks like a 1950s low-budget science fiction movie is being shot. It is like a toy model of some random plane they got from like that, like you said, is not a Predator drone. It is like from the 50s.
It's hanging on strings, and in order to make it look like it's moving, they just move the camera backward along the length of the drone.
you might think we're joking, like we're just saying, oh, it had some bad effects. No, I was watching this. I legitimately paused, and I was like, did I pick the right movie? Did I pull up the right thing? Because this looks like it's from, like, this is like Ed Wood, like Bela Lugosi, like quality special effects here.
Yeah, so you open on the U.S. spying on this dam, which is supposed to be the cover for all of this mind control operation, whatever, and characters are introduced. I don't really care that much. And then after like a solid 15 minutes, we move to an aircraft carrier, completely unrelated. And a guy calls for Seagal's character, who's just labeled as Cody. I don't have his last name.
Cody is his last name.
Cody's, what's his first name?
Chris Cody.
Christopher
Cody? Are you serious?
Yes.
He is disgraced agent Chris Cody Banks.
Yeah, so a guy calls for disgraced agent Cody Banks. And you have this shot of Seagal in handcuffs and chains around his legs, walking down a hallway in slow motion to some really intense music, and it lasts for so long.
It's so long.
That also describes like half the shot of this movie is just some really weirdly intense music on a shot that lasts too long.
Oh yeah, it's so long, and he walks his way down. Oh wait, no, but before we get there, there's a whole unit of guys that go into like, take out the dam. A whole unit that like the A team, not the A team, whatever, doesn't matter.
They're like spec ops guys.
Yeah, like
but one of them was
A team, like the first
ahead of time.
Yeah, the first team to go there. So they go there, they fail, they get captured, they get brainwashed. That's the whole thing.
Except one of them was brainwashed before.
Oh yeah, what? Yeah,
because he's the guy who accidentally like scuttles the mission because of the brainwashing.
Right. See, I didn't even follow this that much. I said to Zach, I said to both of you guys, I wish that I could speed these movies up like you can podcasts. Like I don't want to watch the movie. I just want to talk about the movie.
These are
I could watch
way more fun to talk about than to watch.
If I could watch this at 1.25 or 1.5 speed, it'd be so nice. You can tell. I'm just not that into it. So yeah, A-Team goes in, they fail.
Those mind control VR helmets that we see in the movie, and just I can in 5 minutes have seen the movie, just like absorb it.
Yeah. So they go in, they fail. You get your weird extra long intro to Seagal with music and slow-mo. He sits down, and all of a sudden he opens his mouth. And when Steven Seagal opens his mouth, you hear the most just horrible, like stereotypical black guy impression. And he's like that through the whole movie,
except for the points where he's 80-yard over by some other guy.
Well, yeah, we'll get there because it's like probably a good third of the movie is him actually talking, and it's this awful. I don't have another way of putting it. It's just an awful impression of a stereotypical black person. It's the worst, and he just mumbles through the whole thing. You can barely understand what he's saying. I had subtitles on through the whole thing. Which, first of all, the subtitles that I read had barely anything to do with what was actually being said on screen because there was so much swearing and so much like mumbling and whatever. The subtitles just kind of glossed over that and sort of injected context into the movie because you couldn't understand what they were saying, and that doesn't matter. So,
Zach has wait, real quick. What? I just wanted to point out. I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to point out this is by far the longest. This is by far the longest we've gone before they introduce Seagal. Like, it is a solid, 10 minutes into this movie before he shows up. He's normally within the first 2 minutes. Similar to Aaron's... Except for Ticker. Similar to Aaron's... Yeah, whenever you're literally watching, you're like, when does he show up? Similar to Aaron's experience last week, I think it was. When I was watching it, the subtitles, when I was watching this on Amazon Prime, the subtitles refused to sync up. Like, they were 20 seconds ahead of what was happening. So I was watching this without subtitles, and so with Aaron, he was trying to watch a movie that was like characters were speaking Japanese without subtitles, so he just didn't know what they're saying. This is an entirely different language. I could not understand half of what Seagal was saying. So similarly, I just missed half of what was happening in this movie because I could barely understand Seagal with the volume turned all the way up without subtitles on. So that was I'm understanding what it was like.
probably about a
Thank you.
third of the movie is actually him talking, and then the other 2/3 of the movie that involve him, it's it's someone that doesn't have even anything even close to his voice doing their best Seagal impression, ADRing over him. And I just, it's so, I'm going to have to edit my stumbling out here because I'm trying to put together what I want to say about it. It's so bad. This is a real movie that was made by professional people.
It felt, when I say this was like 2 45-minute films smushed together, it is 2 45-minute like student films put together.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first
I have information that will explain all of this. So we need to plow through this recap because I have background information that will explain everything.
I have so much more to say. We gotta go. Go. Yeah, Hans, go.
Yeah. No, I know. I just
recap at 1.25 times speed.
Yeah. So you're introduced to Cody Banks. He starts talking about how his team, his crew, they were put in jail. He was put in jail. We don't get explained why until later. They say we have one final mission for you. Later. Yeah, much later. They say we have one final mission for you. If you do the mission, then your whole team, you'll go free. You'll get
$100,000 each.
Yeah, and $100,000 each, which doesn't sound like that much money, but whatever.
Oh.
He says to his team, we're going to be rich after this. And it's like, well, $100,000. Anyway.
To be fair, it is pretty funny.
I wouldn't mind having $100,000 out of nowhere, but if you're, to get, life or death mission and to come out of prison, that seems like not a steep fee. Anyway, they all get on a helicopter. They're given this person who's going to watch over them and another person who's going to watch over that person or their boss, doesn't matter. They get on the helicopter. They go to the landing area, they go to the landing zone, and the guy who was watching over the person who's watching over them gets off the helicopter first, and then the helicopter goes back up, and they're like, no, we don't need him. Turns out he was a double agent, and Seagal somehow knew that from the beginning. Whatever. It was frustrating. They land somewhere else. They meet up with this woman who's supposed to be Seagal's friend from way back, and they have their own little A-team. Somewhere in there, they do like this intro to each of the team members from his crew.
Yes.
And it's when you have the classic 4-man group, there's the wild card, there's the demolitions guy, there's like the leader, and then there's the charismatic guy. And you do the smash headline and the freeze frame to show who they are and what they do.
It just kept
going. Do that. Yeah, they do that in this one. They do the classic action movie thing, but they do it like 8 times. It just keeps going. It's the same. Maybe. What was the movie that had the mafia bosses or the
Out for a Kill? It was Out for a Kill all over again. They learned nothing.
It's the same thing. They just cut between each one of those, the main baddies, and in this one, the main heroes. And there's so many of them, and you lose all
but we don't
context.
Get the fun facts this time. We don't
get
the
fun facts. It's all pertinent information, except half of them die in the first half.
More
of the movie.
Than half. Oh well, in the first, yes, you're right. In the first,
and then we spend like the most important parts of the film with like 3 of those people.
So
just introduce those 3 and have them be there the whole movie. We don't need the other 5 guys.
And it all goes back to what you said, is that there are just 2 movies here smashed together. Anyway, they make their way to this dam.
Hunt for Red October, a la Michael Bay, and then the second half, I don't even know what it's like. It's just trying to ape the aesthetic of Michael Bay, but they have 15 nickels in someone's pocket trying to put it together. I'm so mad at this movie the more I think about it.
So their whole ragtag team, they make their way to this dam. They kill everybody and go down into the dam, and then they have to fight off an army that's really slowly advancing towards them.
Oh my gosh.
Just nobody gets hit by any bullets, even though they're just standing out in the open. Nobody reloads. It's just a huge mess. There's a tank, and somehow the tank can't take these guys out. It's
if you're fighting a battle inside a dam, which is currently holding back millions and millions of gallons of water, and do not fire the main gun of a tank.
I very much like that the good guys are setting these explosive charges, and the tank, which is trying to stop them, just shoots artillery rounds that are doing as much damage as the explosive charges will do.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. So they rescue all the prisoners from the previous team that came in that all got brainwashed, but they don't know they were brainwashed, even though one of the people that's on their team knew they were brainwashed, but didn't tell them they were brainwashed because that would have been too much information.
Just say, hey, put them in the brig, and then we can avoid the other half of this movie.
Yeah, right? So they leave, they go, and they get on this sub that's just there, and they steal it, and that's the part of Submerged.
We are submerged.
And that's it. Like, they just get on the sub, and then the dam blows up. And that's the first, that's actually not quite the first half. Then you get to the climax of the first movie, we'll say, where the brainwashed guys try to take over the sub. They kill a bunch of people, but then the ragtag team kills them, and then they radio the carrier that sent them on the mission, and the carrier says, well, we can just kill everybody on the sub, problem solved. So they blow up the sub, but Seagal and his crew escape on a lifeboat. I'm done. I'm so irritated with this movie. I'm so tired of this. That's the first movie. That's the first one. They all escape the sub on a lifeboat, and they're good. And that's fine. But then they have to track down the mind control guy, and that starts the second movie, completely unrelated,
it's a double
edited
feature.
Completely differently,
and somehow makes even less sense.
And exactly. And I honestly, they track him down. It doesn't. Oh, I gotta go.
How does I do not know how anyone knows anything that they know. Like I don't figure. Exactly. I cannot see how anyone discovers any of the information that they have.
They track him down to unnamed in the Middle East, and there's a government that's like...
I thought it was South America.
Is it South America?
It's supposed to be Uruguay.
Oh, okay. Uruguay then.
They don't establish it well. It's supposed to be Uruguay. Also, Uruguay did not have a dictatorship at this time like they depict.
Of course.
Like a completely ahistorical Uruguay.
So there's messed up government that mind control guy has his hands in, and it's all a big mess, and they have to kill mind control guy, and then they end up going to this opera and...
Tosca. That was the best part of the whole movie.
It was actually. I'll let you talk about that because I'm so irritated with this. I can't talk about it anymore. I really can't. I'm so done. It doesn't matter. They go to the opera and save the day and kill a bunch of people because everyone's at the opera.
Oh, everyone who got mind controlled got murdered by the good guys. There's no way to save the people who get mind controlled. Like they establish earlier on in the movie, once you get mind controlled, like you're done. There's no reversing the mind control. They don't even attempt to reverse the mind control. So anyone who gets mind controlled, they just kill them.
Yep. And then at the end of the movie, it's waiters, whatever. It's like an ad for a vacation resort or something. And Seagal and the one surviving member of his team are surrounded by a bunch of women that haven't been in the movie thus far. Well, no, it was two surviving members of his team. And that's it.
And they have to be surrounded by scantily clad women because that hasn't happened yet in this movie.
Of course. I'm going to have to chop this to hell and back because there was a lot of stumbling in there. I didn't like this one. I was really irritated by this one. I didn't like it.
The more I think about it,
I wanted it to be over. It was so bad.
All agree on that one, maybe? Can we all agree? Are we all united on this one?
Yeah, I think this one was pretty horrible. There
wasn't anything redeeming. There weren't any funny moments. It was just bad.
I will say, okay, during the opera thing, the assault on the opera house.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
A couple things about the assault on the opera house. So the opera that they go to see is Tosca. And the reason they're going to the opera is because the president of Uruguay, who's being pressured by the mind control guys to allow them to do mind control, is against the mind control. Like, he's going to enact a law or something preventing them from doing that. Because, here's a small aside. The reason Seagal is involved in this...
That's this whole podcast. We might as well call this podcast that.
A small aside.
Oh, yeah.
I like it, actually.
That's actually pretty good. Just a small hour, 45-minute aside. So part of this whole thing is there's this business guy who wants to use the mind control to influence government in order to help him grow his business and things so he can enact laws that would help him, operate his business. And so Seagal confronts him in the opera box. This guy who was not mentioned throughout the entire movie. He just shows up and in the last 20 minutes of this movie, I have no idea who he is, but they explain as he's introduced why he's important to this movie. And Seagal talks to him about the mind control and says that it's bad. But what the worst thing about the mind control is that businesses capitalism is getting involved, he implies in this speech to this bad guy that mind control itself, okay, Seagal isn't really against. He's okay with it as long as it's in the hands of government. But once businesses get involved, then he's against mind control. Literal mind control.
Mind control. You know, the thing that is irreversible and irredeemable, and you'll just be killed if you are mind controlled. Yeah.
This is also echoed outside of Seagal too. Like other people even say like, oh yeah, the mind control is awesome. It's just like the problem is like, you know, it's getting into like, you know, the private enterprise in the wrong hands. Like everybody's actually cool with mind control tech. Like, and let's not even say mind control, like a painful, brutal, like brainwashing process where they like force your eyes open and feed nightmare images into your face.
Yeah. The way the mind control
everyone's
works
cool with
is that it implants a false memory of the person that you love the most being in imminent danger, and then convinces you that if you don't do this thing, this person will die. And so the way that it motivates you to do whatever the person who's mind controlling you to do is that it places a false memory in your head that someone you love is about to die. And if you don't follow these orders, they will die.
And no one has an issue with that. It's just like the wrong people having it.
At no point in this movie do they say this is in itself bad. Like they never say that. What they're mad about is that the wrong guy has control of it and that it is profit motivated. Which is amazing.
Profit motivated.
And that's the problem here.
But okay, so the Tosca opera scene. Tosca is one of the very few operas that I've actually seen. And it's kind of amazing that like the timing here, like where they are in the opera as this whole thing goes down, is pretty good. From what I remember of Tosca, like it's all pretty quick, so it's like all in the opening scene. But the timing lines up pretty good, and there are actually just like a couple moments that I thought if you took this and put it into a different movie, it would probably be a pretty good moment. Like I was getting like, I don't know how to describe this other than like Babylon vibes. So there's okay, let me explain.
Okay.
So like there's a moment where Lady Agent, whose name I do not remember, the lady that Seagal knows that he like calls, she like swings down from the balcony and kicks one of the mind control people. And she like lands in some seats. And then a whole bunch of people like point guns at her face, like really close, so she has like this halo of guns around her head.
Like John Wick 2 poster style.
Like John Wick 2 poster style. And I thought, oh. And like she gives this cool smile, and the way the color grading in this moment actually works for it. Like if you just took a freeze frame of this one frame could be in a much better movie. If I didn't know anything about what's going on in the scene, I just saw this photograph, I would say that could belong in a pretty good movie. Because of the way that this movie is shot, I cannot say that about most of the rest of the movie. Like even basic shots of just like someone walking down a hallway. There are just so many fundamental flaws with how the film was made that I cannot say, okay, this shot could be from a good movie. But there are like two shots. There's that where the guns are like around her head. And then in the same scene when the sniper guy falls and there are like flower petals falling on him and he's laying there and it's this slow push in as you hear like the last notes of the opening of Tosca playing. Like that was pretty good. I would say that would work in a totally different movie. But there are so many fundamental flaws with how this movie was designed and blocked and shot and edited that I can't think of any other frame throughout the rest of the movie that could be in a good movie. Every single frame is a testament to how bad this movie is. Like if you took a still image, you would say that still image can only exist in a bad movie.
That's a good way of putting it. I'd agree with that.
Thank you. I feel very strongly about this, as you can see.
Wait, hold on. It's 95 minutes. I'm doing some math here.
Do some math.
So you're saying there's like 2 frames that in total
you
would
that
say...
one? Okay, put that on in the show notes.
So then what you're telling me is that there are 136,798 frames that you hated, that were terrible, that you did not like.
Yes. Bad.
Okay, that's a pretty fair evaluation
that I
of this
thought
movie.
that's pretty good actually.
There was one laugh that I got from this. The one guy from his team that survives to the end, can't remember his name either. He makes his way, or on their way to the opera, for whatever reason, they're separated from Seagal on their way to the opera. Don't remember why, but
They
for
don't
whatever
explain.
reason, they end up
They
in
just
a
get in
big
different
car
taxis.
chase, and at the end of the car chase, they slam into a truck carrying a bunch of watermelons, and watermelons spew everywhere. That was very good.
Yeah.
And then because they were all beat up from this crash, the one guy stumbles and like he has a cut on his head. He probably
For like the rest of the movie,
whacked a little out of it. Yeah. And he kind of stumbles to the opera, and then when he gets there, everybody else has to, bypass security to get into this place. He just kind of walks right in and then walks right out onto the stage of the opera and just sort of looks around with this bewildered look on his face. And he ends up actually saving somebody. I don't remember exactly how.
He shoots the conductor.
That's it. Because the conductor was also mind controlled.
Yes.
Of course.
Yeah. I could not tell you why.
Yeah, that was very good. I did like that, but that was it.
The only laugh I remember having in this movie, the one where I laughed, is when they're setting the explosive charges in the dam during the first movie, and Seagal tells a person, "All right, you got 10 minutes, then get your white ass out of here."
Yeah, as if you're not also? What?
I lost my damn mind when he said that. I had to specifically go back 20 seconds to to see the subtitles from that moment, because they're off. I figured out the timing of how far off the subtitles were so I could see the subtitles for that moment to confirm. Amazon Prime said get your white butt out of there, which was funny. But
yeah, that's what I was saying before. They censored all of the subtitles for this movie, which was really weird. But you said
he has this aggressively offensive, like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, like black, characterized voice.
Played straight.
I can't explain that line
Played
other than
entirely straight.
He does not think he is white.
I think in this movie,
is wild.
He may be playing a black man.
It's weird because he's not. He doesn't have the accent of like a black man from the South, like a Southern black man. He has a Southern accent and an offensively bad black accent,
just vacillates between the two.
And it was bad enough that they had to pay someone to dub over it for.
Okay. I do actually. Is it time? Can I get into some production?
Please tell me how.
Please do, because
was such a train wreck.
Can I get into the production?
The only other thing I have, because I said I didn't take a lot of notes, I just had to remember specific details. The only other thing I wrote down was, does he know? He's such a proud guy. He doesn't want to share the fame with anybody. Does he know that they dubbed over his voice consistently in a lot of these movies?
I can tell you for this movie what happened.
Please.
So, the director of this film, Anthony Hickox, he was pretty excited for this actually, when it was, not even joking, literally a completely different film. So Anthony Hickox had a script that was a deep sea submarine horror film with aliens.
Okay.
I'm not making this up.
I'm down.
The original script was a horror science fiction film where you're stuck at the bottom of the ocean with aliens in the submarine and little creepy crab things that could go in and out of drains, so they could sneak up on you wherever you were. And there was supposed to be a bitter old drunken captain. So it was the director Anthony Hickox, who previously worked on the Hellraiser series. I think he did Hellraiser 3. He wanted to make The Thing, like John Carpenter's The Thing, in a submarine.
Okay.
That was the script.
I would have liked that.
Okay.
That would have been good.
He said, quote, "It was really interesting," and then Seagal came on board. According to the director Anthony Hickox, Seagal signed on saying, "I liked the script," and then 3 weeks before they started shooting, Seagal calls him and says, "I don't want the movie to be on a submarine. I don't want aliens. I don't want to be in a monster movie, and I want there to be an opera scene." So he said the entire premise of the movie. I don't want, and also put an opera scene in there.
Steven, that's the whole movie.
So, and then the whole mind control, the mind control element of it, this whole brainwashing thing, allegedly was just a last minute. They came up with that the week before they started shooting.
What?
And so the film was called Submerged because it was going to be in a submarine the whole time with like an alien horror movie. And Skull came on and just said no.
A total of like 20 minutes on a submarine.
And who let him say no? Who let him have that power? Was he a producer? Was this one produced by Steamroller?
No, actually. It was Millennium Films, New Image, and Emmett Furla Films. The New Image, I know we've seen before. I know we've seen them on a couple ones.
He can't keep getting away with this. How does he have so much creative control?
I was going to say, why would you not just boot him?
He's not listed as a written by.
No, Steven. No.
Oh, also, it was distributed by Sony Pictures, which was weird.
The film is what it is. If you don't like it, you can leave. We'll get somebody else. We'll get somebody better.
The problem is, Seagal's entire career, his entire career is nobody's saying no to this man. Like, who let this man get in charge of this? Because, like I said, when you describe that original premise, I would watch that movie. That's a good movie.
That would have been a great movie to watch instead of this one.
And I think I promised that I think this was to Aaron. I promised they had conflicts on set, obviously. So, I don't know why he's been badly ADR'd in the last 5 movies we've seen, but in this one it was because he refused to come in and record his lines. We need you in post production, and he just didn't come, so they had to find someone.
Okay,
for him.
Here we are in episode 19 of Steven See It All, and so I've been doing a little research recently, and there have been other podcasts which have watched all of Steven Seagal's movies, but none of them have watched them in order. And actually finished
or committed to all of them, yeah.
And actually finished it. There is one other podcast. What's it called? It's on Spotify. It's probably really good. I listened to the first 10 minutes of the first episode.
We did some research and we found some other podcasts that did have the same theme, like what you're talking about, but none of them did it in the same order or whatever. There are some differences. It doesn't matter. We just wanted to do this because we thought it'd be funny. But the biggest difference that I saw in a lot of them was that they were relatively positive about Seagal.
Which was very strange. And then when they
found out that he was... Yeah, it was very strange. And then when they found out that he was actually a piece of shit, they put some kind of disclaimer on their podcast that said, sorry, we didn't actually know that this guy's best friends with Putin or that he, very well might be a human trafficker. And then they stopped doing their podcast.
Okay.
We've been clear about that from the beginning.
Yeah, dear listener, you heard it here. We were never under any illusions that we were going to have a good time.
I think it is worth pointing out because this does exist. When you look at Letterboxd reviews, when you look at, there's that book Seagalology or whatever, a study of Seagal's movies, there is, or at least was, a sect of people that got an ironic joy out of it. I don't think I think there are maybe some people who are genuinely just oh, these movies are fun and I like Seagal. There's another chunk that were oh, so bad it's good. You can enjoy it's ridiculous, but he kicks a dude through a plate glass window.
It is neither of those.
People that got genuine. So I think, I don't want to speak for all of us, but I hate Steven Seagal. I despise this man. I think there's some people who don't really like the person.
You can speak for me at least.
I don't.
They watch these movies and they have fun and they enjoy it. It's so that's good. I'm not enjoying this. Every one of these movies, I hate the man even more. I have zero positive things to say, and the more of his movies I watch, the more negative things I have to say, both as a man and as a person and on screen.
I think the only joy we've gotten out of any of these is from his surrounding cast members.
Well, we get joy talking to each other. Yeah.
The only reason you guys liked Under Siege 2 so much was because of
Bogosian.
Under Siege 1 and 2.
Arno, or not Arno?
Yeah, it was Arno.
It was Arno.
It's not his real name.
But the reason I bring this up, the reason I bring up these other Seagal podcasts, and they're probably good. I think Seagal sessions. I think the method that they use for picking their movies is interesting. They roll dice, and that's the movie that they watch.
Oh, that's fun.
Which is interesting.
Oh, jeez.
But what we've done here is...
You can get some bad rolls.
You can get some bad rolls. It's mostly bad rolls, actually.
Yeah.
But what we've done here...
weighted against you in that one.
By watching them in order, I feel like I know Steven. And I am...
You truly understand.
I don't hate him. I want to say, I don't hate him. I am just fascinated. That's because you're a good person. By him. I am fascinated by Steven. How in the world... We have watched 19 of these things. almost every single frame of every single one is terrible. How did he keep getting movies? How did he convince the writer and director of this film to just like rewrite his movie?
Throw away a good idea.
Throw away the entire film. How do you do that? How did that happen? Is he magic? Like,
there must be some kind of like.
Does he
He's just a
is he
stereotypical
actually
character that
does he actually have like some of the skills that he talks about in this movie and just has dirt on everyone who's ever thought about making a movie? And he just has like this library of compromising photographs
into stuff.
Like it's amazing because okay, I'm gonna skip way ahead in our typical format. The other people who have worked on this movie, okay, there are no incredibly famous actors, but there are people who you probably recognize.
Yeah, quite a few.
Like people who have been very successful in television, people who have been very successful in like B movies and things like. Seagal is the most
in this.
Seagal is the most recognizable name on this. He should not be,
and he's the worst part of it.
He should not be the most recognizable name on this movie. Like other people here, Christine Adams, who plays the like doctor who follows along. She was in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Tron Legacy, Batman Begins, Black Lightning, The Mandalorian. She was in Castlevania, the Netflix series Castlevania, which were all really good. William Hope was in Aliens, Captain America: The First Avenger,
he was
Sherlock Holmes.
In this. I loved it.
I
loved him.
He has been like the voice of Bert from Thomas the Tank Engine properties for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes of like everything in Thomas the Tank Engine. Like these are actors and actresses who have been very successful, totally unrelated.
I also liked Vinnie Jones in here. Vinnie Jones is pretty solid.
Vinnie Jones. Nick Brimble was in A Knight's Tale, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Like, these are people who have successful careers beyond Seagal, and yet somehow this man, Steven, will just walk into a project and take over the entire thing, and everyone just does it.
And drag it down. We need to be very clear. He doesn't like take over like, on a tour with a collective vision. He grabs the entire project so he can just weigh it down and like sink it to the bottom of the pool. And
like
pretty much he just says no to all of the things that they had planned. No, I'm not going to do that. So they have to figure out a way to work around him.
For 19 movies straight, every single contribution that we can trace back to Seagal has been bad for the overall health of the film and the production. And yet somehow he keeps making movies. I don't understand.
Do you know a fun little Seagal, like the one other like behind the scenes input I know
it's
about this
probably
movie?
not fun, but tell me about it.
Like towards the end, he does the classic, like, it's doing a gunfight. Seagal's doing like this gunfight. And then, towards the end, he has like one fist fight with like a dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He throws it. He has a shotgun and he throws it to the ground so he can do hand-to-hand.
I assumed it was out of ammo. But then he disarms the guy and takes away his pistol and then throws that on the ground.
He had infinite ammo throughout the entire film. There is no reason to believe that he was out of ammo. He didn't have to reload anything once.
Anyway, fist fight, Zach, go.
So Gary Daniels has an on-screen fight with Steven Seagal. And according to him in an interview, he said that originally like the stunt coordinator, Steve Griffin, was working on a longer like a action fight scene that's like very showy and flashy.
Yeah.
But then Steven Seagal shows up. He says, we're not doing that. He choreographed the fight himself the day it was filmed.
Obviously.
So it's like
it was a slap
10
fight.
seconds long, and he just like kills the dude immediately. Like the guy Gary Daniels doesn't even get a hit on him. Yeah. So they had a cool, good fight scene planned, and he just says, no, I'm too lazy for that. And it's like 10 seconds long, and it moves on. Like you said, literally every input we can trace to him makes the entire production worse. This was supposed to be the director of Hellraiser 3 making the thing on a submarine, and it becomes...
I don't know. Vinnie Jones is in this. He played the Juggernaut in X-Men The Last Stand. He's the Juggernaut. He's from that meme everyone knows, but from the movie that I know.
Recognizable meme.
He's probably my favorite part of this movie.
He's actually the best part of this.
Okay, so I was wrong. There was another line in this movie. I can't remember exactly what it is, but someone says something along the lines of like, "Oh, what are we playing? Like, soccer or something." He was also like a real life, like professional UK like football player. So a character saying that to him did make me chuckle.
There was also Ross McCall was in this for a very brief period of time. Actually, not that brief. I guess he made it into the second act, kind of.
P.H. Moriarty from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Like, yes. How did these people get dragged into this?
Because they signed on to the thing in a submarine, and 3 weeks before shooting, Seagal said no. Also, make an opera scene that Aaron's
going to like. This just confirms the story that you told. Just like all these people who are successful actors, can act, are in good things, signed onto this movie. Somehow, everyone just let Seagal touch it, and then it just immediately imploded. Because of course it did.
And they
because
literally
that's what
had
happens
to do,
every single time. How does this keep happening?
And they literally did a month-long shoot with no script.
And it's obvious, like you can tell. So like looking at this movie, okay, so we talked about like at the beginning, one thing I want to talk about because I think it's hilarious. The way that special effects work in this movie. How they are hilariously bad, but also strangely high effort. So like
and they vacillate between weirdly low tech and like high tech and like previous air, like it is weird.
So there's a scene where Seagal and his ridiculously large crew are in a helicopter, and they drop off the guy who's like a double agent, but they don't know that at the time, but Seagal just guesses and ends up being right because that's how Seagal movies work. The helicopter that they're in is very obviously fake. It's not real. Like, it's some sort of 3D model. Sometimes it looks like it could be like a miniature, but then other times it's very obviously CG, and I can't really tell. But like, it's flying over a lake, and there are ripples on the water, and you can see like a reflection of the helicopter on the water. Like, that took time and effort, but the helicopter itself looks like garbage. And so it's like it was half done, and everyone just decided, and then put it on a disc and put it in Walmart. Like,
but I also appreciate that they have a different scene with the helicopter before that, like the initial team going in, that was done with an entirely different technique, because that's like we said, it's like when they're showing like that stealth photography, like drone that's like looks like it's shot out of like a 1950s like sci-fi, invasion of the mutant whatever's. They're also like the helicopter there. They're in some kind of a helicopter with like rear projection used. Like there was a very clear 1960s like rear projection technique used. Like they're just using different decades of visual effects from scene to scene.
Which it would have been fine if they just did that.
For that first 10 minutes, I like bought in. I thought they were like doing almost like an intentional retro like B-movie thing, and I was kind of on board with that. And that actually would have really worked for like this kind of like sci-fi horror movie. I would have loved that. But then they use like weird early 2000s CG at other times. This movie contains multitudes, and I hate every single malt of that dude.
There are a bunch of people from like Band of Brothers in this.
I think
I'm going through the cast list, just like praying that I don't
randomly
see
some like British soap opera
this movie in anyone's top 4 credits. And I don't, and I'm happy about that. Okay, good. But so let's just talk about the first 45-minute film that makes up this one movie called Submerged for no reason. So I held out hope, and foolishly, I realized looking back that this was dumb, that I shouldn't have done this. But as I'm watching the first movie that make up these two movies, and they're like, they have to go in, rescue the prisoners who were captured during that first raid in the opening scene, and blow up the dam, which has the secret lab in it. I was like, I was thinking about how did the production on this work? I was thinking, what happened here was a small film crew heard that some dam was being decommissioned and it was going to be demolished. And so they went and filmed a movie around it so that the climax of the film would be this dam being demolished. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Like that would be a cheap way to make a movie with a cool action set piece. And how wrong was I? How foolish I was to think that it was actually planned around this. Because when they get to the demolition of the dam, like the whole mission in the first like half hour of this movie is to rescue these people and to blow up this dam. And they spend like 15 minutes setting these charges and fighting a tank to make sure that like the charges on the inside of the dam wall are set. When it actually blows, it's like some After Effects fire placed on top of a picture of a dam, and then like some bad CG water flowing over the top of the dam, and the whole shot of the dam being destroyed is maybe 8 seconds long.
Oh, less.
Like, it is incredible how disappointing.
The funny thing is, I think you're underselling how bad it really is. It's, dear listener, it's worse than what he just described. Like, because there's even, when it first blows up, it just looks like the water is on fire. It looks like the dam was full of gasoline, and then it just becomes like the crappy like CG water, and then it's over.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find a still of the dam exploding.
Like, it's nothing. It is nothing.
Finding one of the 300,000 bad stills of this movie.
It's nothing.
What if we just didn't talk about this movie anymore?
This might be a short episode.
What if that's it?
I really don't have that much more to say about it. Favorite lines?
Oh, you got 10 minutes to get your white ass out of here. Easy.
Oh gosh, favorite lines.
I think mine was the Seagal. Who was the guy that was in big business and he was okay with mind control or something? I don't exactly remember. Seagal,
yeah, that guy
takes him away from the opera, and then takes his car and is driving his car very aggressively with the like rear projection showing wild variation in the road. Yeah. It almost looked like airplane when the guys drive into the airport. Didn't make any sense with the actual movements of the car. And then he what did he say? Oh, he says to Seagal, "I've only had this car a couple of weeks," and he's all nervous because Seagal's like thrashing his car around. I've only had this car a couple of weeks. It is sad that that's one of the best lines in this movie. Yeah, that's kind of depressing because I'm seeing it back now and I'm thinking that doesn't sound that funny.
It's not that funny.
My retelling of it certainly isn't funny.
Also, that whole scene,
but that was the best line.
The whole point of the opera scene was to rescue that guy because there was like an assassination attempt against him, but they needed to question him. The whole point was to rescue that guy. He gets this guy, puts him in his car, drives the 5 minutes from the opera house where the secret lab is, by the way. It's in the same city. And then he like crashes through a whole bunch of windows because it's a Seagal movie and they haven't broken enough sugar glass yet. And then they end up like in this mall or office building or something. And he like holds a gun to the guy's head that he's trying to rescue, says, "Get out of the car." He steps out of the car and immediately gets blasted. Like it just annihilated immediately.
And then Seagal gets out of the car and just standing in the middle of this lobby with one handgun takes out like 9 dudes who all have automatic rifles that can't hit him, but he just bam, 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 takes them all out. After getting the guy he was supposed to rescue killed. That scene made no sense. I was like, why are you kicking this guy out there? I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, Hans just posted the image of the dam breaking. It's like an AI generated.
It's like one of those even like, pre-OpenAI AI generated images where the more you look at it, the more wrong it is.
Like your brain you can tell it's trying to be something.
Finds the illogic.
It is trying to be something. Like the water is sharp somehow.
There are like 5 different lighting setups in this one shot.
It is amazing.
Is your favorite line just like the woman kind of making like a fun face whenever like all the guns are pointed at her?
Yeah, because she looks almost like Margot Robbie. She does like a Margot Robbie impression.
Yeah, I can see it. Guy who has only ever seen Babylon. I'm getting strong Babylon vibes.
I have to point out, Seagal at the time that this movie was made was 53 years old. Jeez. His hairline in this movie is so fake. So like aggressively painted on, it looks like. I don't even know how to describe it. Just the way the like point, the signature Seagal point comes down onto his forehead.
It's pointier here than it's ever been.
It really is. And it's so like he's 53 when this movie came out.
And every one of those years shows.
No, it doesn't. That's the point. Like he's I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that because it absolutely does. But in his hairline, it does not. Like he's in denial of his
The reason
age.
I think about this is, so I just saw an interview with Pierce Brosnan the other day. It's actually very nice. It was like this guy was talking to him and they realized they're from the same hometown and they connected. It was really cute. And like he's an older gentleman and like I would not believe him like still being in James Bond, like an action movie. But like he still looks like, oh, this guy's like, he's older, but he's still looking fine. Seagal looks rough in this. Like he has not aged gracefully.
The movie does not do a whole lot to help him.
No, but he also doesn't do a whole lot to help the movie. So
no, he actually actively worked against the movie being good.
It turns out, yeah, every step of the way.
I'm trying to get a still of his facial expression here. I can't quite get it.
My third note, my first three notes on this movie. Millennium changed their logo. Interesting. This model drone is amazing.
Yes.
My third note, I'm getting big Spy Kids vibes here.
Oh, it's so Spy Kids. It's so spy shit. It's amazing.
Specifically Spy Kids 2, by the way. Note number 4, why is everyone so sweaty?
You can tell how much we're into the movie because I think like on 7 separate occasions we've talked about this like one shot of the drone from like the start. Like
hang on. While I'm at it, getting screenshots, I got to go back and get.
There's like 95 minutes in this movie, and we're all talking about like the 20 seconds that this like this like drone special effect because it's
star of the movie.
It's like the most memorable part of the movie.
There's gonna be so much editing out of clicks and keyboard strokes on my end.
Okay, so what movie should you watch instead of this one? I'm just gonna list off every movie. That's the thing. My movie you should watch instead of this is just every movie that this movie is trying to be. So it is Spy Kids 2. It is Bad Boys 2. It is Fast and the Furious. At the very end, when they're all sitting around the dinner table, it's like literally like the ending of one of the Fast and Furious movies. Like,
that was definitely
after all this happened. Family were at this table.
Some script from a Fast and Furious movie, and then just filmed that for like the last 2 minutes of this one.
Hunt for Red October, we said watch that instead. Weirdly enough, we actually haven't mentioned this yet. Like the exact premise of like we got these people like in prison and we'll send them on this like dangerous mission that we know a team's already failed at, like because we don't care if they die. It's Suicide Squad. Honestly, I'm gonna recommend either Suicide Squad movie before. You know what? I'm gonna include. You could watch either live action Suicide Squad movie or the like animated like DC animated universe like Suicide Squad movie. Any of those would be better than this. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, much better opera scene. Actually, so weirdly enough, this movie, I can't say was trying to be this, but conveniently, like yesterday, I just got around to watching Bullet Train with Brad Pitt. So if you want... there's the drone. Oh, Droney, I love you.
Just in case you were curious, that's not what a Predator drone looks like.
Not even close.
No! But I was just watching Bullet Train, which was pretty fun. It was actually a pretty decent one.
I
kind of wish I saw it in theaters.
Has a similar premise as far as like mind control and making people violent goes, but I don't like very much. Kingsman.
Oh, you should watch Kingsman instead.
Much better action with a similar sort of mind control premise.
What I was going to talk about was like kind of how, admittedly in this movie, they were only trapped on the submarine for like, 10, 15 minutes, like we said. But if you want like a movie that is set like on one vehicle, like everyone is just like in this vehicle together and like doing into all kinds of wacky hijinks, that's Bullet Train for you.
Yeah.
You know what? Any of the Kingsman's movies, I haven't even seen like the latest Kingsman, and I'd still say it's probably better than this one. Oh, there's so many movies you can watch instead of this. Babylon.
Babylon?
Just cause.
If you want the best parts of this movie stretched out for like 3 hours.
The list of movies you should watch instead is just too long.
It's too long. Has this taken the number one spot from Ticker as the worst Seagal movie for you?
No.
That's tough.
This comes
think
in
Ticker still holds
a close second, but Ticker is still...
I would say
right
this is a very close second.
This is the greatest contender we have had. You could put these two in the ring, and I would not exactly know which one to bet on, but I do think like in like the... I don't know how many rounds boxing has. In like the 9th round, Ticker would take it. You can watch Raging Bull instead of this. It's a good boxing movie. Any of the Rocky movies.
I've been watching a lot of Friends recently since we got it on.
You can watch Friends instead of this.
I would much rather have been watching Friends than this. Or while we're talking about TV shows we like, Barry.
Oh, watch Barry.
I have not seen the latest episode.
I
Barry
won't talk
season
about
finale
it then
comes
because
out right
it's,
after we record.
I'm
this.
pretty much always
so
one
much
episode
better.
behind.
I freaking love that show. I
It
can't.
is very good.
Don't...
I got my dad hooked.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's crushing it.
How?
That's
far is he?
awesome. I have one episode. There's one episode at the time of recording. There is one episode left in the entire series, and I have absolutely no idea how they're going to wrap
It's going
it
to
up.
be wild.
I really
It's gonna be
don't.
amazing. Wait, Aaron, how does I know your dad has kind of a feelings on movies that feature Marines, with Barry, his character, being a Marine, and that
he
featuring
thinks
in there.
it's
How is
great.
he? Okay, cool. Awesome. Dad gets it.
No, yeah, he thinks Barry's awesome.
Where is he?
It's he. I can look at my phone because I was asking my dad this through a text recently.
Hey everyone, welcome to Bill Lover Not Hater, the Bill Hater Fancast, where we're talking about Barry. Join us next week.
I would love to do a Bill Hader
Tropic Thunder.
season.
Oh, I would.
Oh my
mess with
gosh.
the Bill Hader season.
My dad said last time I texted him, which was a few days ago, the detective just got kicked in the head and killed in the grocery store.
That's
Ronnie
what a
Lilly.
good episode
He just watched
to
Ronnie
talk
Lilly.
about.
He just watched the most insane episode of that show.
He's whipping through it.
Oh, you should be watching Ronnie Lilly instead of this movie. We don't even. Okay, here's the thing. I like this. I really like this kind of bit that you introduce, Aaron, where we tell movies that people should watch instead of this. Nobody's watching this movie. Like, we don't even need to recommend other movies to watch instead.
No.
Nobody's watching this. Watch literally any other movie.
Yeah, I've been coming up with a bunch
Except
of jokes the past couple episodes. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to actually have a real suggestion when it's applicable. But for this one, God, it was just so bad. I can't. I just can't.
Also the Matrix. We talked about how it like literally tries to do the Matrix lobby shootout.
Yeah.
It even steals the same joke, like not exactly the same way in that movie where they walk through like heavily armored. In this one, they're in the lobby and there's a metal detector, and like while he's holding the gun running after a guy, he like runs through the metal detector and it goes off, which is kind of funny, but it's like that joke's been done. But
it wouldn't even matter if that joke's been done. It's just because it's like a funny little quirky joke in the middle of everything else that's going on.
A movie you're
on
just
screen.
praying
It's like,
to end,
And
it
Seagal
starts becoming a
has
third
no sense
movie,
of
and you're
humor.
like, just end.
Everything he just has this thing about himself that the way he plays his character, everything has to be played straight. He's always the straight guy.
Yeah, he is.
And it's
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a good SNL host right there. That sounds like a good Saturday Night
We
Live
really need to
host
do
right
the
there.
SNL episode. I need you guys to watch the SNL episode. It's so
I tried.
awful.
It's so hard because it's not that I don't think it's that he can't do comedy.
No, I
It's
think
that
it's
he
that he can't do comedy.
refuses to try.
It's that he refuses to make fun of himself, and that's what SNL is.
He is always the straight guy in every situation, and it's just painful.
But it's not just that he refuses to make fun of himself. It's just that also, like, when they do attempt humor, the only jokes this guy responds to, the only jokes this guy even attempts are, like, prison rape jokes. Like, that's his style of humor, because that's happened in multiple of these movies. The beginning, whenever, like, the squad's getting brought on, his, like, teammates, they're making jokes about being people's boyfriends in prison. Like,
Yeah. I want him to crack a smile at some point in his life.
No, the best you can get is a weird smirk at the wrong time.
I was just re-listening to the Fire Down Below episode, and I remember being angry. Like, he does, like, this genuine, like, this full, like, grimace smirk, and it made me angry.
Steven, if you're listening, don't, by the way.
No, you should.
But
Steven, I know you're listening. I'm fascinated by you in the same way Aaron is, but I hate you so.
I am fascinated. You need a hug. Like, you need help.
No.
No.
Ew,
help.
no. Absolutely not.
I don't-
Wash your mouth out with soap. What the hell?
here's my reason. He's very dangerous because he walks into these projects and just takes over the whole thing, and everyone just sort of lets him. That sort of power should not be joined together with this sort of incompetence.
Okay, but this dude
He
had
is
like
movie poison.
This dude had like 4 wives. I'm sure they hugged him at least once. Like, that didn't fix it. That didn't help it.
I don't know what you need.
This man cannot be fixed, Aaron.
Everyone can be fixed, Zach. I'm holding out
feel
hope
like
for Steve.
You're holding. Oh boy, that is a new definition of hope.
Come on, Steve.
I was gonna say though, this movie does reset.
I gotta watch
Steven
30
Seagal.
more of these, Steve.
Oh, that's hope the only thing carrying you through this. But this movie does reset the run counter. Steven Seagal is not yet, general of Share Force One. He still runs in this movie. So we are at 0 again. This might be the last one, but in 2005, he did run on screen for like 5 seconds.
He did
General
run.
of Share Force.
So we'll see.
Wait, is
when
that a Zach original? Can you claim credit for that?
Well, every other branch of the armed force likes to call the Air Force the Chair Force. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's a long-running military joke. I'm not.
I grew up in a Marine household.
Never mind.
We definitely talked about the Chair Force.
I'm sorry.
But he's not yet graduated to 4 legs. He's still on 2 legs at this point. So
Yeah,
we'll reset that counter. We'll know. We'll make a note that he has run in this movie, and we'll see if it's the last time. I have no hope. I'm glad you still have hope, Aaron. I definitely hate Steven Seagal. I definitely hate Steven Seagal movies. I'm concerned at the end of this project I'm just going to hate movies.
I don't hate movies.
I doubt it.
It's like these other podcasts that I've looked at, just doing our market research. Making sure we're actually filling a real niche. Is that these other podcasts do them out of order?
Yeah.
Which I just doing it in chronological order seems the most logical to me.
Right.
Well, but it also, exactly like you said, you get a better look at Steven Seagal as a person, as an actor.
Like I'm learning so much about him to see
But it's for
him
good
grow
and bad.
up.
Like if I'm gonna do a Scorsese podcast, I'd want to start beginning and go through chronological, see his evolution as a filmmaker.
How does the previous project influence the next? So like a couple episodes ago, we were talking about like Seagal made 2 movies in the same year, and one has a vastly higher budget than the other. Just like looking at the movies. How did that happen? Like, what is going on at this part in his career? Like, I just find that interesting.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much during this podcast, making of this podcast, and I hope I keep learning because, like I said, we have 31 more movies.
See, here's the problem. Here's one problem. Here's one.
We're actually at 49 because we did. I don't think we ever talked about this, but we did skip Clementine, which isn't actually a Steven Seagal movie.
Ooh.
So where there were originally 50 of these, there are only 49 now.
49. Ooh.
Although I think there's gonna be some like special like bonus because I feel like we do have to do one on Saturday Night Live. Maybe we do like one episode just devoted to like his bit parts. So like Clementine and was the one with Kurt Russell, like some of those ones where he just appears.
Yeah.
The tangents.
Yeah.
The major problem I have though is the pigeonholing aspect. Like, like Sean Evans, host of Hot Ones. Like this is something he's talked about where like he'll get asked to do other projects. Like people reach out to him, like, do you want to work on this thing? And he's like, does it involve eating hot wings? And they're like, yes. Like every single time that he is like the guy that eats. He's an amazing interviewer, but he is also just like, he's known as like the hot wings guy. Like after this is done, after we wrap on Steven Seagal or whatever, I can't tell another person. I don't want any other person to know I did a Steven Seagal podcast because then they're gonna want to talk about they're gonna ask questions or or maybe they're not interested.
Buddy, you put your name front and center on this project. I think that ship has sailed.
But that's what I'm worried. Exactly. That like at this point right now, I don't tell people I'm doing this podcast. I was literally at like a work event where I sat at a table. I was at a work event where each table had a different theme, like talk about, books you like here, talk about, hikes and nature trails nearby here. One of them was podcasts. I sat at the podcast table. I refuse to mention the fact that I'm currently doing a podcast because at the end of this, after watching 49 to 50 Steven Seagal movies and talking about each one for 40 to an hour and a half, I'm not ever going to want to say this man's name again. And if I say, I did a podcast where I watch all 50 Steven Seagal movies, naturally any follow-up question involves me talking about watching Steven Seagal movies, and I do not want to do that. Like, I already know I'm done with it after this podcast. I will never watch another movie of this man again. I will never speak his name.
No.
And that's not how things work. So this is like, I need to bury this. This is like my deep, dark secret. Like, no one can know I did this podcast because... if I did a Martin Scorsese project and tell me about Martin Scorsese, I'm like, absolutely, yes, I love that man, Raging Bull, amazing. But they're gonna be like, hey, I heard you're doing like a Steven. Like this has happened now multiple times. Like we were at lunch with my grandparents the other day, and Sarah's like, oh, did you tell me you're doing a podcast? I'm like,
Oh yeah, I've started having my family ask like where they can listen to the podcast, and I'm like, I don't know if you'd like it.
Well, it's also with my grandparents. I'm like, do they even understand the like? Do I first have to explain the concept of a podcast and then explain like what the appeal of this might be? Because I can't explain the appeal of this to myself. How am I going to explain the appeal of this to someone who is listening to FDR's fireside chats for their version of a podcast?
Oh my!
This was a mistake. I hate my life. Although fortunately, I do go on my honeymoon in a couple days, so that will be my cleanse. We'll be in Italy. We will not be watching a Steven Seagal movie. I will not speak his name. We will not watch a movie or talk about him for 2 weeks. And I think that is just what how in olden times, like a character, like someone would have like. Well, when you're reading like literature from like the early like 1900s, and a character has like bad lungs, and they prescribe them, you must go live by the sea for like a summer.
Yeah,
it's that. I got like a prescription for Italy for 2 weeks to fix like my Seagalitis that I have. Like, I my vigors are low. I must, go to, Italy to like, restore my
a little too much black bile,
my composure. Yes,
I haven't taken any time off yet this year. I have very much been considering just taking a week.
I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks.
Oh, where are you going?
I'm going to Germany.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right.
Wait, for how long?
A week. 7 days.
A week.
And when do you leave?
Does that mean 3 weeks without recording, or does
one of those overlaps with Zach?
Okay, man, I was really excited there for a second. Almost. A whole month.
I'm sorry.
Almost a whole month without Seagal, and it gets brought back to 2 weeks.
You know what the worst part is? I'm gonna get back from it's like a 5 or 6 hour like time difference. I'm gonna like get back on like that Monday and have to watch a Seagal movie like within a day or two. Because then we
get back on the 12th and then re-record on the 14th.
Yes. oh, that is just waking up from a dream into a nightmare. Out of the frying pan, but frying pans are good in this situation, and then into the fire. I'm not looking forward to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Should we?
Well, you get back from Germany and then have to do the same thing.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I have one last recommendation before we wrap up this episode.
Okay.
And this is kind of a serious recommendation, actually. So like we said before when we were talking about the cast of this movie, pretty much everyone else who touched this film is successful in some way. So my recommendation to our dear listeners is go on IMDb, click a random actor or actress who was on this movie, and then just go watch something that they made.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Because it's all better than this. And they deserve it.
Yeah, truly. I mean, that's William Hope. Like, he was in Aliens. Go watch Aliens.
Go watch Aliens.
Yeah.
Go watch Ross McCall in White Collar.
Yes.
That's a great show.
Go watch Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and you'll get like 2 or 3 of the actors who were in this movie.
Man, this one sucked, huh?
It was pretty bad.
This was really bad.
Submerged, more like submerged until it died. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd rather submerge my head in a pool of lava. I don't know.
So next episode will be Today You Die. And,
what? That's not the title.
That can't be the title.
It is the title, and I gotta tell you, today I died a little because of Submerged.
Nice, good one.
Somebody better be out to kill me. I want to walk right into the sun.
Jeez. No, you can't just.
That means one of us has to die.
Are you going to be unwrapping little candies during the actual recording like we just heard?